Hi, this is K.N.Fitzwater. You're watching my channel, and today we're going to talk about 3 different act structures. Joseph Campbell's story structures that he had analyzed and did the beginning of the story theory. And in the next other videos, we're going to talk about Dramatica and the Saving the Cat, how they're different. Everyone knew about the 3-act structure. The first act is the beginning, the second act is the whole meat of the adventure, the third act is the end. But we all need a little help and guidance how to put our stuff throughout this whole thing. I did a video a long time ago about story structures, and I just want to break it down better. It was all over the place. It's all smushed into one video, and I'm going to make this a little bit more bite-sized, and we're going to talk about those story structures. Now, just because it's a story structure doesn't mean that you have to strictly adhere to every single little detail that's asking. It's just a guide. It's going to help you understand where you should start flipping the plot, because this is what the audience like. This is kind of their expectations. This is why some of the audience may push back into certain things that goes against these structures. So we're going to start with the oldest structure of them all, which is the Joseph Campbell one. And we're going to show how that shows up in the first and second and third act structures and overlay it here. That's our first, and we're going to do this here. We're going to get you out right in the middle, and right here is another big one, and here we are. Okay, so you see these divisions of 4. We're going to explain why they had come into divisions of 4 a little bit later, but for now, this is our first act structure. This is our second act, which encompasses these 2 sections. And this here is our third act. So, Joseph Campbell was the father of story theory. He is the first one to analyze all the Greek and Roman stories and found there's a pattern to what they're talking about. And from here on out, the pattern is external. We're doing external events that occurred in the plot. We don't really get into the inner character's journey. We're going to the outer character's happenings. The Greeks and Romans usually don't go into the mindset of a character, how they're feeling, how they're reacting in this psychological manner. We really got into that from the 1800s on. The 1900s on. In the 1800s, they're still kind of doing this where they're not really getting into the main character's mindset. But from 1920s on, we're starting to ask questions. How is the character reacting to these things, and is it plausible? and we notice that there's a pattern as these things progress in the story. So here he breaks up the first act into 3 parts. And the first act, using the episode 4 Star Wars The New Hope as an example, because it is the most Joseph Campbell story that you could see and watch in a very quick manner. The first act is where Luke, our hero, is in Tatooine and stays in Tatooine. The moment he leaves Tatooine with Obi-Wan, Han Solo, Chewbacca, and the droids, that moment on is where we start getting into the rest of the story. That whole moment here. But for here, we're stuck in Tatooine. We're dealing with the space bits where we're seeing the princess being captured by the evil nefarious forces of the Empire, and then she sent her droids into this planet. So the moment here from Luke obtaining these droids and then meeting his mentor about these droids, he's stuck in his ordinary world. He is what we will call right now the hero's yesterday, where he is in stasis. He's not doing anything except playing with his toys, and he is stuck, and he wants to leave, and he can't because his guardians, his aunts and uncle, really want him to stay out of conflict because they don't want him to die. They really care and love him. And of course, being a teenager, he doesn't see that. So he's just stuck in a rut, spinning his wheels. Here is the middle of the first act, called the call to action. Or the call. We call it call to action. He calls it the call. This is also where the mentor interacts with him. This is also where Bilbo Baggins talks with Gandalf, and where Gandalf is persuading Mr. Bilbo to take on the contract and go on this journey with the dwarves. This is where Obi-Wan tells him about the conflict with the Empire and the rebels, and how he wished he could be more involved in this fight, but he's kind of too old. He can't really save the princess. He's not like what he used to be. But Luke could do it. He's young, and he is gifted because he knows whose his father really is, and he knows that he's gifted. He tells him that your father was a Jedi like you. You have the stuff, and you can help. You can help me save this princess here. Now, this part is the gut reaction of the hero. What Joseph Campbell here said, this is the refuse. The hero says no. And the reason why they say no is because they are still stuck in stasis. They're so used to their world being the way it is, they're kind of dragging their feet. Luke says, look, I'm supposed to stay for the harvest. I'm supposed to stay around the house. They need me here. I'm not going to go on this adventure, and why? I'm just a farm boy. So this refusal is right after the call of the mentor here. And It took his uncle and aunt passing away for him to go, fine, I'm going to go and do this, because it's personal now. Somehow, in some way, the mentor or some event is going to convince them to get going and move. Here, Joseph Campbell says it's the mentor. Usually it means that they prepare on their journey. They gather the group. Usually it is the hero working with mentor, like you see here, where they decided to go with this journey and they prepare themselves to go. It wasn't Luke who hired Han Solo, Chewbacca. It was Obi-Wan who hired them. So this is where the mentor has the hero, his assistant, help prepare for the journey here. And this is where they start leaving. And they start preparing. Now, the moment they cross the threshold, which is the first quarter of the story, they are finally into the thick of it. Into the actual journey that they're meant to go to. So, from here on out, we expect to see them to never return back to Tatooine. He never went back. He never went back to Tatooine, and if he did, he would have been changed by the events that had occurred. There are two sections here that occur at this point. The test in allies and enemies, so we could call it trials and tribulations. That's what we have been calling it. Trials. It's also when they get allies. And this is the approach for obtaining what they really need to obtain. So here I'm going to say goddess, but it means more than the actual goddess. So this is where in the Greek and Roman stories they go through all these. Goodness. Okay, you're gonna be stuck here. Sorry, everyone. So this is the moment where they are dealing with obstacles as they approach to the destination they're going for. Either it's the original destination, like where Frodo and the rest of the hobbits are going into Rivendell, or it is where Luke Skywalker and the crew tries to save Leia, Princess Leia. Oh. Okay. This is Blondie. She is joining us. Hi. So she's going to say hi and figure out what's going on. So this is where we're seeing those obstacles. This is why we have the king tell the hero, okay, attain these 3 things for me. The golden fleece, defeat the Hydra, get rid of this monster that, has been causing problems, etc. So it's all those things before they obtain what they really need. So all those trials happen here in this point. Here in our modern retelling, we use training montages. This is where we saw Obi-Wan training Luke how to use the Force. This is also where they're dealing with this foreign world. So if you have a foreigner in a stranger in a strange land scenario, you have not the book but the whole premise. You have them bubbling around in this foreign country trying to get by while dealing with culture shock, and they're kind of doing well or they're kind of making a mess of things, depends on what their skill level is. Now we also say allies and enemies because this is where we deal with the foreign forces in the journey. So this is where the Death Star kills Alderaan. This is where Obi-Wan feels the effects of the Death Star blowing up the planet. And this is also where some of the monsters of the trials try to go after the hero. And here you also have guides in this section. This is why he mentioned allies. You, just like the journey to the west or other journeys, such as Frodo and the crew, this is where they meet Aragorn. They created allies and friends and enemies and dealing with nature and the other antagonistic forces. The approach is when they finally get into the destination they're going for. For here on out, this is where in our New Hope story, Luke and the crew gets into the Death Star and they search for Princess Leia and discovers that she's in the Death Star, and then they try to get her out of there while Obi-Wan tries to secure their escape plan. And that's how they approach. They approach towards the goddess. They work their way towards this point. Now, the goddess can be a person, just like Princess Leia. It could also be a negative truth, such as in Captain America's Winter Soldier, where Stephen and Black Widow learn about Hydra is actually inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. and has been corrupting and manipulating affairs from the get-go. So that is the moment of truth. It's also where our hero becomes the hero that they need to be. In some ancient stories, this is where Caesar gets killed. This is usually where this is the fulcrum of the story. In our, let me use a different color. Let's go with blue. Hopefully you can see this. So as we progress towards the middle kind of climaxes here, and in ancient times, this is kind of the result that comes from it, from dealing with those actions, and all just rolls downhill from there. Those are the approach. So that is what it used to be, where they attained the thing. It was a struggle, and then it was a struggle getting out, and then everything just kind of rolls downhill from there. What we do is actually build it up to where it kind of climaxes into the third act and then tapers off into the middle of the third. So we in our modern telling build it up. And then we have it taper down. And I lost the lid on this one. So going back into this approach, this is where they're going through the belly of the beast, trying to find the jewel within. And if they are becoming the hero, this is where they are obtaining the pieces needed to become the hero that they need to be. From here, this is where Captain America deals with the Bond propaganda program to trying to help with the war efforts, and then he becomes the Captain America we need him to be, and it goes on. Here, Tony is slowly creating and constructing the Iron Man suit, and this is when he finalizes and becomes Iron Man. So it's not just saving the princess, it's also becoming the hero that they need to be. This is where they discover something or that changes the rest of the story. In Legally Blonde, this is when she helps her salon friend obtain her dog, even though she's not qualified to be a lawyer yet. She disguises herself to help save the day and becomes the hero that she was supposed to be, which is a lawyer in Legally Blonde. And she did it for the greater good, which is helping her friend obtain her her pet, her dog, which is very heroic in my personal opinion. So you can see where it's not just an action adventure. You can shape and mold it for other things. Now, here on out, once they obtain and become what they need to be, they have to get themselves out of there. This is where they deal with the ordeal of obtaining the thing or becoming the thing, and they have to make a break for it. This is where you have Han Solo and Luke and Leia fight against these stormtroopers and try to get out. You have Obi-Wan Kenobi fight and be stealthy around the Death Star and then deal with Lord Vader. So this is the moment. Let's put down ordeal. Where they're dealing with the ordeals where the cave or the maze that have been hiding the jewel, that's been trying to keep it, they kind of push back. When you have a hero becoming the hero, this is where they're dealing the ordeals of what heroes do, which is dealing with the nefarious forces as the masked vigilante that they are. In obtaining the truth, you still deal with antagonistic forces trying to stop you. Now you know what's going on and the hero is acting on it. There is a pushback as a reaction to what the hero has been doing. Now they know the truth. They are fighting back with knowledge. So that is the ordeal. And then we have here where it's the reward. They're rewarded for their efforts because they obtain the truth, and they pretty much sit on their riches. They have some good things happening to them. This is what the ancient stories had, you know, where they are rewarded for their efforts. They take a moment to relax and have fun. etc. We really don't do this often. We should. It would have been so much more fun. But this is what they used to do in Joseph Campbell. We have changed this dramatically since then. And usually it's because we have the mentor pass away and die here. And the reason why is because of what is called the roadblock. When Joseph Campbell was analyzing these stories before they hit into the ordinary world, for instance, they go into the cave to obtain the fire of truth. As they work themselves out of the cave, they are on this journey and going back home. So you have the forward path, this journey, going into this cave, which is called the approach. Then they got out of the cave finally, and now they're heading back home with this fire of truth. And this is where the reward is, where they are rewarded with their friendship, their camaraderie. They take a moment to have a breather, and they celebrate their spoils. Here, the roadblock breaks into the third act. This is where they have some resistance from the ordinary world for having this fire of truth. This is showcased by George Lucas's New Hope, where they were attacked by some TIE fighters trying to stop them from going back to the rebel base, and they tried to rout them, and they were able to defeat them as they journeyed back to the rebel base. That was the roadblock that he was trying to showcase. Admittedly, it was before, because it was on the journey home. Now the home is a Tatooine. The home is the rebels, where they have a new base of that they are holding, and they brought the princes home to the rebels so that way they can fight against the evil empire. So this roadblock is a final, one of the many pushbacks that happens as the hero tries to go back. Let's say the hero finally obtains what they need to be, but then all of a sudden he can't go back into town. He can't go back to the castle because the evil vizier is trying to overthrow the ruler that had sent him on this journey. So you can't have the hero have to deal with this vizier, throw him out, and either he becomes the next king, or he helps put the king back to where he should be in this ordinary world. That's why we have this roadblock here. Now what happens into the third act? You have what's called the resurrection, kind of like the phoenix. And you have the return. This is where the hero uses the fire truth, or the goddess, or the hero that he needs to be, to overthrow the old cloak that has shrouded the world. In the first act, it's been in stasis. It is unmoving, it is gray and dreary. By going on this journey, they had changed enough where they could throw this old cloak off and create the change that needs to be changed. And here they are transformed. Now the transformation can be painful. It is a trial in itself. It requires everyone to pitch in and to help overthrow the mantle, in this case of the empire. And the hero has to tap into his inner strength to push forward. that tap down is what we call the resurrection. He has to die completely what he, well, okay, he has to kill what he used to be, this whole farm boy aesthetic, and become the hero that he needs to be. This is the moment where Luke Skywalker decided, I am a Jedi, I'm going to use the Force. And by using the Force, I could help defeat the Death Star. This is where, in that moment, he pushes that scanner away. He says, no, I'm fine. I got this. He let go of his eyesight as a normal human being and tapped into the supernatural force to defeat the evil Empire. Now the Empire lost their evil Death Star and ultimately saved the universe. The rebels were able to continue on their mission, having been saved from the nefarious force. The Empire took a blow. This is the shot that's heard around the universe. And by doing so, it had changed the world for good or for ill. The return is when they finally return to the old world, and the old world has changed, they have changed, and now we have a new normal. So that is the Joseph Campbell superimposed on the first, second act, and third act structure, superimposed on the third act structure. This is kind of what the story structure used to be for a long while. We have changed much since then, and the changes that we've seen come from theater and from movies. Our tastes have changed, where we want things a little bit more dramatic, and that's where Dramatica comes in. So next time I'm going to talk about the Dramatica story structure, and afterwards I'm going to talk about the Saving the Cat structure and how those two differ and how it can be used in stories. So go ahead and hit that like button, hit subscribe. I will come back with another story structure. We're going to talk about Dramatica, how it's similar and how it's different, and go from there. And I see you next time. Bye.